All right. CBS News finally admitted that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. And that includes references to President Biden himself as the big guy getting a cut. And so this raises a lot of questions about how much President Biden was unethically involved in Hunter's shady business deals, which are being investigated by the feds right now. And the bigger problem here is how much the intelligence community colluded with Twitter and the national media to suppress the story. And it's important because a whopping 67% of registered voters, this is according to a Democrat pollster, Mark Penn, 67% of registered voters said they believe Hunter Biden selling access to his father is an impeachable offense for President Biden. Do you agree with those voters?
Well, God, there's so much to unpack in there. Well, first of all, when you say 67% of people believe it's an impeachable offense, that assumes a quid pro quo. You see, this is the thing, and this was true, and Hillary is, I think, a worse example than Hunter Biden. But the bottom line is there's no proof that Joe Biden actually did something and was paid for doing something. That's where these questions are misleading. So, yes, I think this story is a big nothing burger, not because Hunter Biden, and I feel sorry for the guy. I've dealt with addiction. It's a brutal thing. And he doesn't have anything else going for him right now than his father's name. So obviously, he gets hired on boards, they're going to pay him because he's a Biden. But I would say two things. First of all,
he's an artist,
I haven't seen. Hold on,
famous artist. No, I was saying he's a famous artist. He's got that going for him.
Oh, that's right, famous artist. Excuse me, I stand corrected. Thank you. But I would say two things. First of all, there's no evidence of a quid pro quo, which would be an impeachable offense. And secondly, all this stuff happened before Joe Biden was president. Okay. I mean, if you want to really look, even Kellyanne Conway just recently came out and said what everyone knew, that if there's anyone ever profiting from the family, it was Jared Kushner, who made hundreds of millions of dollars, including getting bailed out of his bankrupt New York apartment building by the Qataris. So I think that's where you'd want to look. Going on to the part about Twitter and all the investigation, I would simply say, I admire Elon Musk in a lot of ways. I don't know if he's the most reliable person to believe a lot of stuff. I mean, he was admittedly on acid when he said that the Saudis were investing $70 billion in Tesla, which proved to be absolute bull poop. And, a lot of times with Twitter, and I'm not saying that some of this stuff wasn't concealed, but a lot of times they're trying to figure out, okay, what's a real story and what's a rumor? Where do we draw the line? So should they have done more? Yes, but I think it's a little overblown to go with Tucker Carlson's line. This is some huge conspiracy between the media and Twitter to suppress information. So again, I think this Hunter Biden thing is a big nothing burger. And if Kevin McCarthy thinks that the American people want him to focus for the next 2 years on something happened with some president's derelict son. By the way, Joe Biden is the poorest senator of all. The guy's not wealthy. If he were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, that'd be one thing. It's a guy who took a train from the Senate to work. So he's always been the poorest senator. So it just doesn't add up. But if I may take 1 second to say one thing, this is a perfect segue. Mr. President, please don't run for a second term. I've never implored a president to do anything on our show, but you're just not up to it. You haven't even finished 2 years yet, and you've already aged in 2 years. You can make it through 4, but you are not in the physical shape to pledge to the country that you can serve until you're 86 years old. You just can't do it. Plus, even if you're hoping that Donald Trump is going to be facing you, well, what if it's a younger candidate? Voters may want change. Plus, second terms are always harder than first terms. And I could go on for hours. And also, wouldn't you love to negate the Hunter Biden story? Because if you're not running, it's totally irrelevant. So please, please don't run. You're being irresponsible and you're setting the party up for disaster. Okay, that's the end of my little sermon. Your thoughts?
If that's your next question,
No, that's not. That's definitely not mine. I just want to give you the last word on this one.
I concur with that. I guess what's slightly terrifying though is who would he be replaced with? And yeah, I don't know if we can get much worse. So yeah, it's the just the most basic competence. I mean, it just seems like he's being controlled by very hard left forces that are farther left than who he at his core has been for his whole life. And I think that that's really sad to see someone being basically used as a puppet for an ideology that's much further to the left of than what was in his heart as an individual for the vast majority of his political career. That's unfortunate. For example, in his early on, for most of his career, Joe Biden opposed public funding for abortion, and he said that an abortion is a tragedy, that it's a something that we should be really trying to limit. And now he wants to have abortion up until the most extreme circumstances, and that's just one example of how he's been pulled so far to the left. And I think that's unfortunate. So yeah, I agree with you that I'd rather have someone who's in full health, and the country deserves better.
And by the way, I mean, I would say controlled is being a little dramatic. I think he's definitely been pulled to the left, but he's also gone to the center to pass some bipartisan legislation. But he certainly has been pulled to the left. But I would tell Democrats, don't worry. Who would have thought of Jimmy Carter at the end of 1974? Who would have thought of Bill Clinton at the end of 1990? Who would have thought of Barack Obama at the end of 2006? So don't despair. New people from the bench will always emerge. The one candidate I never heard mentioned I think would be great, Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. That's my dark horse choice. Okay, on to my second question.